Win.
All right, Kathleen, you can begin.
Okay?
Yes.
Good morning. So we're going to talk about pruning perennials. Perennials as opposed to trees or shrubs. Um, so we'll stick with perennials for this particular review. And the first thing to remember is that most plants do not need a lot of pruning. And the second is you cannot kill a plant by pruning it, because plants just want to grow. So the important thing to remember about pruning plants is the timing of it. Whether the plant blooms on new wood or on old wood determines when it should be pruned. Plants that bloom on old wood, like rhododendrons, bloom first, and then the new growth comes out. And it is apparent as the flowers fade. If you remember your rhododendrons, they have a beautiful bloom, and then from underneath the flowers comes a couple of new stems, and those are the stems that form the buds for next year. And you can see those buds on a rhododendron. That's not always the case on a lot of plants that bloom on old wood. On new plants that bloom on new wood, they put out their new leafy growth first, and then they bloom. So the plants that bloom on old wood are your spring blooming, early spring blooming plants, like the rhododendrons. And the plants that bloom on new wood that have to leaf out first are your summer blooming plants, like clematis. And there are some plants, just to confuse the issue, that will bloom on new wood and old wood. So in my garden, I have a number of tools here that I use. Mostly depending on the size of the stem that I want to prune, and the distance from which I have to prune it. So mostly I use my hand pruners. This is a bypass pruner, which is a workhorse. I have a couple of these, and they're the best pruners, and they can cut anything up to maybe a ½ inch or so. And then I have larger ones, these two, that will cut up to maybe 1 inch or 1.5 inches. But I don't have too many of those, only because this is a very small garden, but you may need something bigger. And if it's a tall tree that I need to prune, I use this saw, which has a nice extension. And if I need to saw something closer to the ground, I have my handy dandy handsaw.
Ooh, I love that one. I'm getting one of those.
If anything else needs to be pruned that I can't do with these tools, I need to call a professional.